Fewer and fewer U.S. citizens are able to retire with dignity today, and instead find themselves having to work menial jobs just to be able to stay alive. And if Wall Street gets their way, the situation for America's seniors is about to become much, much worse, and I have attorney David Tassell with me to tell us the latest Wall Street scheme to steal your pension money. So David, in the last days of 2014, the Democrats in the House and the Senate, along with the Republicans, decided to give a massive gift to Wall Street that unfortunately is not much of a gift to the American people. Give us some background on what just happened. That, I mean, everybody needs to be aware of what the Democratic Party really just gave to Wall Street.
Absolutely, Farron. I think this is really important. At the end of last year, they created a budget crisis, and they said that we've got to pass this new budget to keep the government open. But in order to do it, we've got to do a couple things for Wall Street that are really important. And I think people have heard about one of them. Elizabeth Warren has been really good at getting the word out about the fact that they've allowed these derivatives, these exotic investments that cratered the economy in 2008 and caused the bailout, that they've rewritten the rules back to the way it was before this all collapsed, and is going to allow this to happen again. I think a lot of people have heard about that. What they haven't heard about is this basic target that they've allowed Wall Street to put on the pension plans, and specifically union pension plans are first. And it's really important for people to understand what's going on. Pension plans are one of the last big piles of money out there that Wall Street wants to get its hands on and get fees from and be able to invest on. And what happened at the end of last year is the green light was put on, and Wall Street was put ahead of the pension beneficiaries, but the retirees, the cops, the teachers, the firefighters who did work their entire life depending upon and believing they were going to be paid a pension. Now they're going to go to the end of the line, and if we have another downturn in the economy, who's going to get cut? It's going to be those cops and those teachers and those firefighters, not the Wall Street fat cats.
We know that's a great point you just made there, is that most of these are dealing with public pensions, public servants,
Absolutely.
People who have devoted their lives to essentially helping the country to grow. We have teachers helping, students, policemen keeping us safe, firefighters protecting us. Those are the people that Wall Street is now preying upon. And this new little provision that they slipped into this must-pass budget bill says that, okay, after Wall Street gets their money, after the shareholders get their money, after everybody else in the bank, takes a little bit
Absolutely.
out of the pot, if there's anything left, you can have this money, which 100% of it is your money. If you're paying into this pension, that is all your money. But now the banks were just given this ability to just take as much as they want, really. That's basically the cut and dry of this bill.
And Farron, you pointed this out at the beginning of the segment, which is very important. This is a bipartisan problem. This is the Democrats and the Republicans working together on this. And as I said, they're manufacturing a crisis. They're not telling you what caused this problem. What caused this problem is that employers didn't put aside the money that they promised for these pensions for these employees. This is compensation. This is what these teachers and firefighters and policemen were promised when they were doing their work for the past 20, 30 years. And employers were allowed to get off the hook and not fully fund those pension funds. And so now today, what do they say? Wall Street comes in and says, we'll fix that. We'll make 8, 9, 10% returns to try to make up the difference. But what really is happening is Wall Street hedge funds are charging massive fees to get those kind of rates and then taking massive risks with those pension funds. And now by this new change in the law, they've made sure that they're going to get paid first. They're going to get their money, but they'll take massive risk with the pension benefits of those retirees that have dedicated their lives to our public service.
And what's interesting about it, though, is that, they get to charge or they'll get these massive interest rates. And like you said, they are going to get most of the return on that. However, if things go south, if we have another economic collapse and they don't get those interest rates, the U.S. taxpayers, essentially the same people they're stealing money from, are right there on the hook to bail them out again.
Farron, the Teamsters Union is a great example. They lost $9 billion in the downturn in the economy in 2008. Why did that happen? Because Wall Street was already, the Wall Street managers were already putting union funds like the Teamsters into large risky bets on the mortgage market, on CDOs, on mortgage-backed securities, on things that were synthetic, and you've heard all kinds of words. They lost all that money while taking $200 to $300 million in fees for putting them in that. And what you also need to understand, what is not talked about in the mainstream media, is that who benefited when those investments failed? Who benefited when somebody loses $8 or $9 billion on Wall Street? Guess what? Somebody else is making that money. And you know who it was? It was Wall Street. It was the big banks. It was the Goldman Sachs. It was the UBSs. It was the JP Morgan Chases. They benefited because they were the counterparty on these deals. And that's what is so foolish about saying, let's turn all the money over to Wall Street and allow them to protect the henhouse, to guard from the foxes when they're actually the foxes that we have to be worried about.
And, you know, when you're talking about the Teamsters there, I think one of the most important things about this new legislation that's going through is the fact that it first targets union pension funds. The first places where this will be put into full effect are places where you do still have very strong, very, influential and much needed public employee pensions.
That's not by accident. Make no mistake. The ultimate goal here is to privatize everything, including Social Security, and turn all that money over to Wall Street. But the place they're starting is with unions. And they're blaming unions for this so-called crisis in the pension fund because that's where they can start. And then incrementally move to get their hands on all of the public money and all of our retirement money. It's very scary. It's very scary to see it's basically, and one way to look at it is it's a wealth transfer system taking money from the middle class and the service class in this country and putting it into the pockets of billionaire hedge fund managers on Wall Street. And when that happens, it's not good for the country.
Well, statistics are showing us, the economy is rebounding, things are doing better, but that takes into account what happens on Wall Street. Now, if you exclude Wall Street from the big economic picture, there is marginal growth in the overall U.S. economy. Most of the growth that has taken place is all centered on Wall Street, which it really is just one street in New York City where all of this economic growth has occurred, and it only benefits the people who work in those buildings. This is not benefiting mom and pop at all.
Anybody that has watched the so-called rebound in this country, it's been a rebound for 1 or 2%. And when you talk about the economy coming back, that's talking about it on a very macro level when you look at the entire pie together. But what nobody's talking about, or very few people are talking about it, you guys are talking about it all the time on this show, but is the fact that that pie now is being divided up among fewer and fewer people. And as you said, it's the people on Wall Street, not the people on Main Street.
Right. And, back to just, the actual legislation itself, as you mentioned, this was bipartisan. This was Democrats, this was Republicans, this was lobbyists too, really. They brought in everybody, and it wasn't unanimous completely. Like you said, we had Elizabeth Warren out there, banging the drum saying, people, pay attention and wake up and see what's going on, see what these people are doing. And it's not just the Republicans, it's not just the Democrats, it really is most of them. You can't even say that it's some Democrats.
The Democrats cannot be allowed to run and hide on this issue. One of the really interesting things is when you actually delve into it and you look into the committee, when it came out of committee, where they would have to take a vote to decide whether they were going to have this voted on and included in the bill. You know what? Interestingly, you can't find what that vote was because the Democrats on that committee don't want you to know that they actually supported it. And when you ask people, well, they can't remember what they voted for. That doesn't pass the test, Farron. It doesn't pass the test.
Right. This was all primarily done in secret. We don't know which specific member wrote the little writer. We don't know what party they were from. We don't know anything beyond the fact that this writer was attached, it passed, and most everybody, not all of them, but most everybody in that U.S. House of Representatives, before the Republicans had stronger majorities, passed it.
And what they did, very simply, was take the nest egg of most of these public servants or these union people that have worked very hard for it over 20, 30, 40 years in the workforce and gave it to Wall Street to charge its fees against, to bet against, to do with it what its will, without any debate, without any public discussion, without any democratic process being employed whatsoever, just slipped it into the budget bill and hoped nobody would talk about it.
At this point, it would almost be better off to just pick a random person on the street, hand them this big pot of pension money, and say, "Go to the blackjack table for 2 hours."
22 black. 22
then,
black.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yep. I mean, because that's essentially what Wall Street does. David, unfortunately, we are out of time. But thank you for this discussion. A very unfortunate topic, but thank you for doing such a great job of telling us what's really happening in Washington.
No, thank you.